If you jump into Hytale's exploration mode without thinking about armor, you're basically asking to get smacked around. Enemies hit hard, mistakes get punished fast, and that's why crafting armor early is such a big deal. As soon as you can, you'll want to set up an armorer's workbench in your base and start turning those hard-earned ingots into actual protection. Trust me, the difference between running around unarmored and having even a basic set on is night and day. Now, here's where things get really interesting. Hytale already offers a solid variety of armor sets, and with creative mode options and future updates on the horizon, that list is only going to grow. With so many choices, it's easy to get confused about what's worth crafting and what you can safely skip. So in this video, we're breaking it all down and taking a look at the most helpful armor sets in Hytale, so you know exactly what to aim for and when. Let's get into it. I'm quickly moving on to the video, and I'm ranking armors in Hytale. Before we start, if you enjoy these types of list videos, don't forget to like the video and subscribe. Enjoy watching.
My friends, only 0.1% of viewers subscribe. If you like this type of content, please do not forget to subscribe to the channel. Thank you in advance for your support.
The armors in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, Cobalt Gauntlets, Iron Cuirass, and Thorium Cuirass. At this point in the game, you start staring at your armor pieces like, are you actually helping me or just taking up inventory space? And that's exactly the vibe of the C tier armors in Hytale. They are not terrible, they are not amazing, they are just there. You can use them, they will do their job, but they will never make you feel powerful or smart for crafting them. Let's talk about the Cobalt Gauntlets first. On paper, they look like a clear upgrade because Cobalt is harder to find than Thorium and usually screams late game improvement. In reality though, unless your entire build is centered around boosting your special attack, these gauntlets barely give you anything new. You lose the poison resistance that Thorium offers, and in return you mostly get bragging rights for mining Cobalt. If poison is no longer a problem for you, sure, make the switch. Otherwise, this is one of those upgrades that feels way more exciting in your head than it does in actual combat. Now, the Iron Cuirass is a bit of a different story. Crafting any cuirass is expensive, and iron ingots are not exactly falling from the sky when you first reach this tier. Because of that, once you have reliable access to iron, you will probably want to move on from the copper cuirass fairly quickly. It is not flashy, it does not redefine your character, but it is a solid, practical step forward. Think of it as the armor equivalent of upgrading from a wooden chair to an office chair. Nothing legendary, but your back definitely feels the difference. Finally, we have the Thorium Cuirass, which is almost funny in how awkward its timing is. By the time you mine enough thorium ore to comfortably spend 20 thorium ingots on a single piece of armor, you are usually already brushing up against Cobalt territory. On top of that, poison resistance becomes less and less important as you progress, making this cuirass feel like a temporary solution at best. It is usable, it is not bad, but it often ends up being that armor you craft, wear for a short while, and then immediately replace while wondering if it was really worth the effort. The armors in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, Copper Greaves, Cobalt Greaves, Iron Gauntlets, Copper Helm, Copper Cuirass, and Adamantite Helm. This is the point where your armor choices stop being obvious upgrades and start feeling like a long-term relationship decision. Not bad, not amazing, but you keep asking yourself, is this really worth committing to right now? That is the exact energy of B-tier armors in Hytale. They work, they help, and sometimes they even feel nice, but timing and resource management matter way more than raw stats here. Let's start with the Copper Greaves. These are one of the bigger copper investments you can make, second only to the most expensive copper pieces. If you rush them early, they feel overpriced and underwhelming, but if you are patient and wait until you have already crafted your other copper gear, the Greaves suddenly make more sense. They give you a modest but noticeable boost to health and resistances, and while they will not carry you through fights, they do smooth out early combat in a way your legs will quietly appreciate. The Cobalt Greaves are where things get a bit more specialized. Once you start leaning into signature attack combat, that 4% boost actually matters and can add up faster than you expect. The problem is that Thorium Greaves are much easier to obtain and offer very similar stats bonuses without forcing you to hunt for Cobalt early. These Greaves shine once Cobalt becomes a resource you can spare, but until then, they are more of a nice later item than a must-have upgrade. Next up are the Iron Gauntlets, which are exciting mostly because iron itself feels exciting when you first get it. Slapping iron on your hands feels powerful, but in practice, iron gives better value when spent on other armor pieces first. The gauntlets are not bad at all, and once you have a steady iron supply, they make sense as a mid-game boost. Early on though, they are one of those crafts that looks cooler than it actually performs. The copper helm suffers from a classic early game problem. It gets replaced way too fast. Copper is everywhere at the start, so making the helm feels natural, but you will not be wearing it for long. Once iron enters the picture, the iron helm offers better stat value for the investment, making the copper version feel like a temporary solution. It is useful while you have it, but do not get emotionally attached. Then there is the copper cuirass, which sounds important but rarely feels urgent. By the time you can comfortably craft it, you are usually already mining iron and planning your next upgrade. While it does provide solid protection during the short window you use it, most players will see it as a stepping stone rather than a destination. It helps, it does its job, and then it politely steps aside. Finally, we have the adamantite helm, and this one is a bit of a tease. The ingot cost itself is relatively low, which sounds great, but adamantite is a pain to obtain, and the actual upgrade from the cobalt helm is minimal. For such a rare and valuable material, the payoff just is not that exciting. It is not useless, but it definitely feels like one of those crafts you do later when resources are overflowing, not when every ingot matters. The armors in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, copper gauntlets, adamantite greaves, thorium gauntlets, iron greaves, cobalt helm, and adamantite cuirass. There is a very specific moment in Hytale where your gear stops feeling temporary and starts feeling like it actually knows what it is doing. That is where A-tier armors live. These pieces are not just filler or stepping stones anymore, they actively make your character stronger in ways you can feel during combat, even if they still ask you to think twice about the cost. Let's kick things off with the copper gauntlets, which are surprisingly strong for something made out of the most common early game resource. Copper is everywhere, so it is easy to underestimate these, but that is exactly why they shine. They are quick to craft, cheap, and give you modest stat boosts right when you need them most. Until iron becomes a realistic option, these gauntlets do a ton of quiet work carrying you through early fights. The adamantite greaves are where things start getting serious. They have the second highest ingot cost among adamantite armor pieces, which already tells you this is not an early decision. That said, the payoff is worth it. A 4% increase to light attack damage is one of the most impactful bonuses you can get from adamantite gear, second only to the very best pieces in the set. For a late game craft, this is one of the smarter ways to turn rare materials into real damage. Then we have the thorium gauntlets, which feel amazing the moment you step into Zone 2 and gain access to thorium. Compared to other thorium armor pieces, these are relatively cheap to craft and immediately grant poison resistance. That alone makes them incredibly valuable early on, especially when poison-heavy enemies start showing up. They are not flashy, but they solve a problem quickly and efficiently, which is exactly what good gear should do. The iron greaves are a massive quality of life upgrade once iron stops feeling precious. They give you nearly double the extra health points compared to the copper greaves, and you absolutely feel that difference in combat. The only reason they sit in A tier instead of higher is the cost. 13 iron ingots is a big ask early on, so these usually become a strong mid-game choice rather than an immediate upgrade. The cobalt helm is a perfect example of smart progression. Helms and greaves are always the cheapest way to benefit from a new resource tier, and cobalt is no exception. This helm is a clear and noticeable upgrade over the thorium helm and works beautifully as your first or second step into a full cobalt armor set. It is efficient, practical, and exactly the kind of craft that feels rewarding. Finally, there is the adamantite cuirass, the heavyweight champion of chest armor. Technically, it offers the highest health point bonus of any cuirass in Hytale, and that alone earns it serious respect. The downside is obvious, adamantite is rare, and the crafting cost is steep when you first start finding it. Even so, this is the densest and most durable chest piece available in early access, and once you can afford it, it absolutely lives up to the hype. The armors in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, cobalt cuirass, thorium helm, thorium greaves, iron helm, and adamantite gauntlets. This is the tier where armor stops asking questions and just starts giving answers. S-tier armors in Hytale are the pieces you craft and immediately think, yep, this was the right call. They give massive value for their cost, stay relevant for a long time, and in some cases, straight up save you from grinding resources you would rather not think about ever again. The The Cobalt Cuirass is a perfect example of smart efficiency. Compared to the Thorium Cuirass, the stat boost you get for the resource investment is insanely good. What really seals the deal is how awkward the next step up feels. The Adamantite Cuirass does give better stats, but not by a big enough margin to justify mining a painful amount of Adamantite unless you are fully committed to endgame min-maxing. Because of that, the Cobalt version stays viable deep into the late game and is an easy craft it and forget it choice for most players. The Thorium Helm is one of the most satisfying early tier 2 crafts in the entire game. Using just 11 thorium ingots, you get 12 extra health points, which is the exact same health bonus offered by the much harder to obtain Cobalt Helm. That efficiency is wild. The moment you unlock the Armorer's Workbench and get your hands on enough thorium ore, this is usually the first thing you make, and it instantly makes Zone 2 feel a lot less scary. Then there are the Thorium Greaves, which are honestly kind of ridiculous for their cost. 15 mid-game ingots get you 21% poison resistance, 17 extra health points, and a 9% boost to damage resistance. That is not a small upgrade, that is a full survival package. Poison-heavy areas become way more manageable, and the raw defensive value makes these greaves feel good in almost every fight. For mid-game armor, this is about as efficient as it gets. The Iron Helm earns its S-tier spot by being a deceptively powerful early upgrade. Iron is harder to find than copper in the first zone, but once you have enough to justify the craft, the payoff is immediate. You do not get extra attack power yet, but the extra health points nearly double compared to the copper helm. That kind of survivability boost early on changes how aggressively you can play, which is huge. Finally, the Adamantite Gauntlets are the rare case of Adamantite gear that feels fair. The ingot cost is relatively low, and in return you get a flat 1 point increase to both the health bonus and resistance percentage compared to the Cobalt Gauntlets. It might not sound flashy, but that clean, efficient stat bump is exactly what you want from late game gear. No gimmicks, no wasted stats, just pure value, and that is why these gauntlets comfortably sit at the top. The video ends here. See you in another video. Don't forget to subscribe.